Hi, this is Marnie Pearson and Sue Painter back with the online business reality show, or Marnie and Sue's Peep Show, where we pull back the curtains on our business and give you an inside look at what's going on with our online businesses. So, hello, Sue.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great, doing well. I see you're still trimming down.
Well, thank
Looking
you.
good.
I don't know. I don't think I've lost a pound in a month. July has been my birthday month, and we've been eating too much. So,
Ah, are you in Nashville right now still?
we're in Nashville, and we're actually leaving in the morning to go down to Florida for a week because I need to have a check on my leg, and we're stopping on the way in Auburn, Alabama, where we're going to be placing my mother's ashes to rest tomorrow.
Oh,
So
okay, cool.
we had to wait. She passed away in March, and we had to wait until the bronze plaque was installed on the gravesite before they would let us actually place the ashes in the gravesite. So it took a long time to get that done. You have to order it, and they have to design it, and they have to produce it in it's bronze, and they had to install it. So they called us last week and said that it was there. So now we finally can go ahead and do the rest of it all. So tomorrow I'll be sad.
Oh, sorry.
It's part of life, but yeah. So I had said in our email that we might talk about Edgar a little bit and maybe copywriting a little bit, but it might change anyway because Marnie was talking about assumptions that you make when you do some kind of a partnership or joint venture or joint workshop with people, and you don't really kind of assume. So do you want to tell that story, and then maybe I'll talk about my rant?
About your rant. I recently did a partnership on a project that just a short-term thing, like an event that I was going to do. And we're really good friends, and we just sort of made all this kind of assumptions and just kind of ran with it and said, okay, we're going to do this. And we ran into a little snag with it because we didn't really get clear on who's doing what, like I assumed I was doing a certain portion of it, and she assumed that she was doing something. We didn't really articulate it out. We just said, hey, let's do this, And so I started creating sales pages and putting it out, and I put it out before she was ready for me to put it out because I'm kind of this. It made me realize there's two different types of people. There's people that create things maybe in an oven of some kind, or maybe a crock pot, and they throw in some ideas and they simmer it a while. And, and I've had ideas that I do like a crock pot. You throw stuff in, it simmers over time, and then eventually, you pull it out and you cook it. So I do things like that. But then most of the time I'm a microwave. I'm just like, okay, let's just get this done. We got to get the sales page up. We got to sell this thing, and we don't have the time to use a crock pot for this particular recipe. So anyway, it kind of got a little bit of hurt feelings, but we worked it out. But it was mainly me because I just ran with it, put it out, and she was like, wait a minute, I said it looked okay, but we hadn't really talked it out or anything. And so anyway, I just kind of learned that you need to talk a few things out. And for one thing, like the timeline of how long you're going to market and when you're going to need the sales page up by, and when you're going to, have to take the last registrations for whatever it is, or kind of a timeline of it, or what you're going to do to market, and who's going to do what, and who's going to carry the brunt of the expenses, how things are going to be reimbursed, how your profit's going to be split. Maybe and just discuss your working style a little bit with the person that you're working with so they know. Can you think of other things, Sue, when you've worked with people that you would want to talk out first? Or
well, going back, I mean, for you, I would say that I wasn't going to say microwave. I would say more stir fry, like quick. You're going to get it done, stir it, and get it done. And I do think you have to be careful of styles. I don't like to do joint projects unless there is a written working agreement, because it does help bring things up that can be discussed, especially if people are friends. Like the visualcontenthelper.com site that I'm doing right now in partnership with my friend Terry Brooks. we do have a written working agreement so that we understand how things are going to be handled and how we're going to get out of it if we decide that we want to end it as well. But going back to the styles of people, I sometimes think that it's good to do partnerships with people whose styles match yours, because I'm not, I'm more like you, Marnie. If we came up with a great idea, you and I would be like, okay, A, B, C, D, E, let's implement it and get it out there. I'm not a process person. I don't want to talk about how it feels. I don't want to talk about maybe we should think about this. I'm like, the world is moving on while you're deciding that you've got to think about it 9 ways from Sunday. Either you want to do it or you don't, and here's what it's going to take to do it. So I am more like you in that way, and I don't do well going into partnership with people who want to discuss things for hours, and they're wasting time, and more to the point, they're wasting money. They're wasting opportunity. So if you are a have to process everything kind of person, you have to go find somebody else who is a have to process everything kind of person. And my bet is that you'll talk about it, and 2 years later you'll never have implemented it, but that's just my bet. So I have a bias about, let's just get it done already. Quit talking about it. But I do believe that there is that personality type, and I do think you do have to talk things out, and you can leave some of it, if you're really good together, you can leave some of it to how the flow goes, but you really have to I think you have to know each other pretty well. When Allie and I work together now, when we're teaching live from the stage, she really likes to have things organic, and I do too. So we can kind of go with the flow, but we've worked with each other for 4 or 5 years, and we know each other's styles very well. And we know where we can have give and take. The same way that I feel about you, Marnie. You and I know where we would have give and take, I think, pretty well. But some other folks probably would not be that way.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad that you were able to talk it out and, resolve the hurt feelings thing, because, you do have friends in the online world, and you do want to do things together. And it is easy to get your feelings hurt. And yet you are online because you both have the same kind of business and the same kind of view of how marketing works. So it's a shame to not work collaboratively sometimes, because collaboration really brings you strength. I think the 2 heads are better than one, for the most part. And so I love working collaboratively with people, for sure.
Yeah. This is a little off tangent, but you're going to go to the kid thing. I just wanted to say, I visited my grandbabies while I was out out there, and I went up to Rexburg where my son Caleb and his wife Ashley are. Yeah. And they are so cute because they don't even have to ask each other to do anything. It's just one of them lifts the baby's legs, the other one wipes his butt. Everything is just seamless, and they're just so fun to watch because they're like instinctive. And they kind of had a funny conversation one night where she was accusing him of being able to read her mind because he knew when she needed a drink or knew when she needed a back rub, and he's like, no, I'm not reading your mind. And it was just kind of a funny little thing, that they were doing. It was cute, but they do seem to read each other's minds. If you can find a business partner that's like that, I've watched Ellen Britt and Denise Wakeman seem to be like that. If you've ever, they don't even have to discuss it. Each one of them knows what to do, and they just do it. They're
kind of on the same vibe, and I'm that way a lot with Paul Evans, who has coached me for a number of years now, who I really learn a lot from. I can ask him a question, and like in 2 seconds, he gets my drift, and he answers it right at that little spot that I need answered. He's like, I understand you. I know you're an implementer. You're like, I'm going to ask you a question. Hit me hard, and let's go home. Let's talk over. We don't need to hem-haw about it. So I like working with him because he's quick, and I think really in the online world, if you're not quick, then you tend not to do well, because if you want to constantly think of things change so quickly that by the time you thought it might be a good idea, 15 other people have already done that idea. So you have to be quick about it, I think, in the online world.
I agree.
Honestly, I think sometimes that's why psychologists and psychotherapists who want to turn themselves into coaches don't do well, because they're process-oriented people, and they want to think about and mull things over, and they want to have things perfect. Perfectionism will ruin a business quicker than anything I know. Honestly, it will. So sometimes you have to stop thinking about it and you actually have to implement it.
Right.
And if you don't, then your great ideas will never see the light of day. So
I like to say perfectionism is impossible in a vacuum. You have to release it. You have to put it out, get some feedback, tweak and adjust. You know, you need the feedback of the audience. You'll never get it anywhere near perfect without it. Look at Microsoft. How many imperfect versions of DOS and Windows did they release and just get the feedback from the customers over the years?
I mean, there's never been software launched that didn't have bugs in it. And so that's true. You do have to really get comfortable with that. But if you're stuck in process and in perfectionism, I honestly don't think you're an entrepreneur and you don't make it in the online world. That's just my bias. And I back that up with over a decade of working with well over 1,000 people. I've seen it over and over and over again. So, you know, just my experience in life, I guess. And then that brings me to my rant, which, I mean, I'm sure we'll probably get comments on this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Bill and I like to watch Food Network Star, which is this show where they bring in all of these people who are cooks and they try to decide, well, they don't try, they do decide who's going to be their next Food Network star, and they get their own program if they win the show. And it's always fascinating to me to see who shows up, how they manage themselves throughout the competition, which is very stressful, and who ends up with it. And then later on, some of them have shows for a while and they don't catch on and they disappear. And some of them catch on and, you know, they become a part of the Food Network celebrity status, I guess. So there was an episode of Food Network Star last night in which the only remaining woman, a gal from California named Michelle, decided, when it was down to about 5 people from, I think, 16 when they first started, she decided to quit and go home because she just missed her kids so much. And it flew all over me. It just flew all over me. First of all, usually when I see people quit because, oh, they can't stand to be away from their kid, it's because they're tied to their kid more than they need to be. Their kid is doing fine. They're the ones who aren't doing fine. And second of all, the model that she now has told her kid is that it's okay to quit when things are tough. So there was a lot of stuff on Twitter and a lot of stuff on social media after that happened last night. And some people, of course, were oh, well, if you're not a mother, you just don't understand. And then some people were, you know, well, she knew she wasn't doing well anyway, and she knew that she was going to be eliminated eventually because she was constantly toward the bottom. So I guess she just decided to cut her losses and go home early because it was just too hard, and why put herself through that? That's what some people said. I'm not saying that. That's what some people said. And, you know, my thing is, number one, you always have to look at the model you set up when you act, not only to your children, but to your family and to your friends and to the universe and to the people who are your clients and customers, you know, writ large. And I don't like, I see so many times in my life when women opt out and quit right when they're almost getting there. And then what that does is it serves as a horrible model for the people they love. I remember once long years ago, I had a client who was a brilliant woman and she had a great idea for a business. And one day she decided to just quit working on it because she was used to making brownies for her kids' homeroom once a week. And she just couldn't stand the thought of not delivering those brownies and having to go out and market, or maybe one day she'd have to travel, or maybe hadn't even happened yet. She was already just worried about it. And I sat and thought, well, what's a better model for your kid? That you bring brownies every Friday? I mean, the kid will really be all right if you don't bring brownies every Friday. Kids are a hell of a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. And that's number one. And number two, wouldn't it have been great if you could have modeled for your child what it takes to be committed and persistent and a leader, and modeled for your child what it was like to have a multiple 6-figure business, which she would have had? That to me is better for my kid than brownies on a Friday. But I can't ever say anything about that, and I get it thrown up to me all the time because I'm not a parent. Just because I'm not a parent doesn't mean I don't know how to parent. And just because I'm not a parent doesn't mean that I don't see sometimes that people really do use their children as their excuse. And it breaks my heart. I don't like it for them. But for her too, she absolutely had somebody else knocked out of the competition who would have still been there had she not kept on in that spot till almost the bitter end. She knocked somebody else who would have loved to have been there. And then she called it quit when the going got tough and she thought she missed her kids too much. Her kids were doing fine. She was the one who doesn't doing fine. So I don't know. I hate seeing that. So that's my rant. You can think about it what you will, but I just look at the model that it sets. I see so many people when I was in the corporate world. I cannot tell you how many women I had who had babies and they were going to come back, and consistently the day before they had to come off maternity leave, they would call up and quit, leaving the business, which had held their position open for them for sometimes 3 to 6 months, hanging. They had already been accommodating for 3 to 6 months. It just gives women a horrible reputation. Like, if you want to stay home, stay home. There's nothing wrong with it, but make up your mind ahead of time and don't try to squeeze everybody and manipulate everybody to your own just devices. I don't like it. So that's my rant.
Well, can I chime in as a mother?
Mother.
I agree with you to a large degree. I think it's a shame that the woman didn't realize, if it really was about her kids, that she wasn't going to be able to do that. I mean, really, you're going to go do a Food Network show and you're that tied to your kids and wanting to be with them. I mean, you should have processed that before you went down the road, would be my suggestion. I mean, I think it's fine if you want to be the brownie on Friday mom. I have never been a brownie on Friday mom. I have not ever been the one that runs to the store, or to get the thing that my kids forgot at midnight so they'd have it the next day. I'm like, too bad, you should have told me earlier. That's the kind of mom I am. So, but it's interesting, on this trip that I went out, I stayed a lot longer than I normally do. I stayed 24 days, and I was nervous about it because I've never been that long away from my kids as a single mom. I don't think I've even been when I was married. I would have been fine if I knew I had a parent there watching them, but I was a little nervous about doing it. And really, in the end, it was the very best thing for my kids.
Absolutely. It teaches them independence. Absolutely. Yeah. It does. Yeah.
Jillian, who hated to clean and would not clean because she might get germs before I left, was cleaning the house consistently, doing the dishes, made all the food. She planned all the meals. I just gave her money. She planned all the meals, shopped, fed everybody, and was way within budget, better than I ever am, by just finding Pinterest recipes. She's more prepared for college now. She goes in a few weeks, so now she knows what it's like to budget and do, and she's cleaning, and she's still cleaning in there. And I don't know, my kids did fine. I mean, I had people checking in on them, and my oldest daughter's 27, so it wasn't like they were completely by themselves. They were all like 14, 16, 18, 27, and my sister lives next door. So it wasn't like I was leaving them little kids. But there's something to be said for letting your kids be independent, I think.
I know. I was talking to this family at the pool the other day, and they had a little boy who's, I think, about 4 years old, who has been afraid to be near water and afraid to have his face splashed with water, and they wanted, of course, for him to learn to swim. And so they reluctantly paid for these swimming lessons in this very cut and dried swimming program that exists here in Nashville, where the kids are not coddled at all, and they are taken, and their moms and their dads can sit right there, but they are taken to learn how to put their face under the water and how to blow bubbles under the water, and how to dive under the water and how to swim. And I was talking to the mom, and she was like, well, I was a nervous wreck, and a couple of times I just wanted to come off the side of the pool and say, you can't do that to my son, because they told him to go underneath and blow bubbles. And she was like, well, he doesn't know how to blow bubbles. Well, he went underneath and he did. And now he loves the water, and he was in the pool yesterday diving around and diving to, they were throwing these little things on the bottom of the pool and in the shallow end, and he was diving down to get them and watch me, mama, watch me. And she was like, at one point he was crying and I wanted to pull him out of the pool. And the instructor got in his face and said, do you want to cry or do you want to learn how to swim? And she said, he said, well, I want to learn how to swim. And he said, fine, then quit crying and put your face under the water. And the little kid did. So I think sometimes this, over empathy with kids doesn't do any good. It does, in fact, a lot of harm. And it's not about the kids. Kids are smart and resilient. It's about the parents who can't stand not being that enmeshed with their kid. So, and that's a real shame. And that's why we have kids today who can't hold jobs, whose mothers and dads show up to register them for their college classes. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal the other day that companies are having trouble because the parents are showing up for job interviews and the kid's not even showing up. Well, that would happen about one time with my business and out the door, Charlie. So, I mean, it is really gone over to the other side. Kids need to be independent and they need to be pushed a little bit to be independent. And then that makes them well and alive and have agency in the world and have the ability to make their own decisions and stand on their own 2 feet, which after all, isn't that what you want? I mean, that's what you want. If I had had kids, that's definitely what I would have wanted. I would have wanted to teach my kids how to do well for themselves and how to be independent, despite my discomfort, despite my discomfort. So I don't know. It just kind of flew all over me that she wasted an opportunity. And so far down the pike, she actually kept someone else who might have had that opportunity too. I agree with you. If you want to stay home with your kids, stay home with your kids, but don't go taking the spot of somebody who would have killed to have that spot because you wanted to play with it. And then when the going got hard, you decided you better go home. I don't like that. I think it's disingenuous and I think it's dishonest, honestly. So I don't know how much time we have, maybe 5 minutes. What else do you want to talk about? Somebody asked me today about copywriting and where they could go to get cheap copywriting. And I laughed out loud, actually, because I don't know any cheap copywriters. So I don't know what you do your own copywriting and I do my own copywriting, but what do you have to say? I actually think it's a good skill to learn because if you're in the online world, you are going to have to write copy over and over and over again. And chances are you're not going to be able to afford to farm it out all the time unless you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So I don't know, Marnie, what do you think about that?
Well, like in my product creation classes, I teach people the basics.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing that I teach people is features versus benefits.
Yeah.
So if you say you're going to give people a private Facebook group, just ask yourself, well, so what? So what are they going to be able to do in there? Okay, they're going to be able to have a community. They're going to be able to get your help on the fly when you're in there. I mean, flesh out the benefits on the backside of it and talk in benefits. Most people they're very feature driven when they try to write their sales copy. And that's the biggest thing I try to teach people is how to just keep asking yourself, so what? Who cares? Why would anybody care that you're offering XYZ benefit or feature?
Yeah, my favorite example of that is, if you know me very, very well, I love Beamers. I'm a Beamer gal. I just sold my second Beamer and I don't have one now, but I will have again. And when I first bought my first Beamer, one of the features of it was that it had seat heaters. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, you can say BMW has seat heaters, which at the time with my first BMW, a lot of cars didn't have it. Well, what does that really mean? So you can say, we have seat heaters, or you can say, your ass will never be cold on a winter's morning. Which you get more attention. The benefit is you don't have a cold butt, and it helps your back if you've got a bad back. The feature is it's a seat heater. So what? So you have to think about that difference between the feature and the benefit of it. And you want to always talk in benefits. I agree with Marnie. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know any, quote, cheap copywriters. Copywriting is expensive. And the reason it's expensive is because it's hard work. And someone who does your copywriting has to get into your head and has to know your business pretty well. And then that takes a little bit of time for them to do, which is why I normally say, go take a copywriting class or go read a good book on copywriting and see if you can't start coming up to speed doing your own copy for the most part, unless you really are you don't have time to do it. You have a multi six-figure business and you're doing sales at a really high rate of return. One of the people who asked me about copywriting back about 3 weeks ago wanted to hire a copywriter to do her copy for a free webinar. And I was like, well, you're liable to spend $2,000 on this copy for a free webinar. I don't really see the efficacy of that. You have to watch your bottom line here. So if you don't have writing skills, then you got to get those writing skills because you use it so much in the online world, I think. Unless you're just at a different level. I mean, even Allie, who has a team to help her with things and has a very large business, she is very good at copywriting, and sometimes she'll just sit down and do her own because she knows what it is people want to hear, and she understands what copywriting is.
Yeah. I write my own, and then if it's something that's a real product, a big product that I'm really trying to sell, I'll get Lisa Ray Preston to give it a once over and tell me what she thinks I need to do to make it pop. She's really good at reviewing copy or writing it. So
yeah, that's your friend.
Yeah,
if people are interested in going to her, then is it LisaRayPreston.com?
Yeah, RAE is how she does the Ray.
Yeah, LisaRayPreston.com. Yeah. Okay. Anything else before we end?
I don't think so.
Well,
Speaking of people taking their kids to college, I'm supposed to take mine next week. So
that's early. Where's she going?
She's going to UGA, but this is like some parent-student orientation thing. The college actually has the parents come. So
they have to. Colleges used to never. When you went to school, did your parents show up for orientation? Mine sure as heck did not. But now they have so many concerned parents that they've realized they have to actually orient the parent as well as the kid.
Right, which I never have done with any of my others. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. So it's like two or 3 days, the first to next week. So I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
Talking more about UGA than you want to know. Well, when do classes actually start though? When does she have to go down?
I think it's like August.
Yeah.
She has to go back August 11th. I'm not sure exactly when it starts, but
yeah, that's early.
This is like the registering for classes and orientation stuff next week.
Yeah, that's fun for her though.
Anyway,
it's cool. Good for her. I guess we will see you guys next week, and I don't know what we'll talk about, but remember that if you have questions, you can always send us questions and we'll be glad to answer them. Do we have any questions right now, Marnie?
Yeah, I've been checking and I don't see any questions, but I will.
Okay.
Yeah, not today.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Good to see everybody, and I'll see you next week, Marnie. Bye.
Bye.